Hello, and welcome to this special episode of Blue Marble Podcast. I'm your host, Rev Char Bear. Thank you so much for tuning in. And today I'm joined by members of the Circle Sanctuary delegation to the Parliament of the World's Religions 2023 that took place in Chicago, Illinois in August. Welcome to all of you. I have in the program with me today Selena Fox, Dennis Carpenter, Laura Gonzalez, Judith Quitner-Sayes, Kern Green, Dia Crabtree, Nicholas C., and Amy Dev. It is so good to have you all here. Before we start our group discussion, I just want to mention for members of our listening and viewing audience who may not know what is Parliament of the World's Religions, here's a brief summary. The Parliament of the World's Religions, sometimes called the Parliament, sometimes just called PWR. It's basically the what founded the modern interfaith movement. And this year, it hosted its 130th convocation with 210 world religions, spiritual paths, secular humanist groups gathering in force to answer a call of conscience, a call to action. And the PWR was created to cultivate harmony among the world's religions and spiritual communities, to foster their engagement with the world and its guiding institutions in order to achieve a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. The vision of the Parliament of the World's Religions is something that includes religious and spiritual communities living in harmony. It includes religious and cultural fears and hatreds that are replaced with understanding and respect. It focuses on the richness of human and religious diversity. It works with the world's most powerful and influential institutions in moving beyond narrow self-interest to realize common good. And it respects the earth and all life, which is cherished, protected, healed, and restored, and calls all people to commit to living out their highest values and aspirations. So we see areas of focus that include climate action, a global ethic, indigenous peoples, next generations, peace and justice, and women's dignity. I would like to begin by asking our delegates, Circle's been attending the PWR for a long time with delegates every year, participating, leading rituals, invocations, workshops. And my first question to you, Selena, and then to you, Nicholas, is, why is it important to you that Circle be represented at PWR?
Circle Sanctuary, since its founding in 1974, has had an interfaith as well as intra-faith dimension. The Parliament began in 1893 and then had a centennial rebirth in 1993 in Chicago both times. And when I learned about the Parliament in 1993, I knew it was essential that Circle Sanctuary have representation there. And I'm so thankful to personally have been part of the Parliament at each of its convenings since 1993. In Chicago in 1993, 1999, in Cape Town, South Africa, 2004, in Barcelona, Spain, 2009, in Melbourne, Australia, 2015, in Salt Lake City, Utah, 2018 in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, 2021 online, and then 2023 back into Chicago for this 130th anniversary celebration. Circle Sanctuary not only has had representation and delegates at each of these convenings, but it has been supporting the work of the Parliament in many ways. So one of the main reasons we've been involved with it is part of our larger work of supporting interreligious networking, dialogue, and collaboration for a healthier, more just, sustainable planet.
Thank you, Selena. Nicholas, how about you? Why is it important to you?
Why is it important? For me, it's both personal and a legacy. I attended the 1993 Parliament, also in Chicago, and it was new. I was young. I said, "Sure, let's go," and it really changed my life. In retrospect, my looking at the world and wanting to know what's going on in the world probably began in the 1993 Parliament of World Religions. There wasn't so much video back in 1993, so perhaps we have some writings. Today, the legacy, I think anybody who's part of Circle, the church, or community, seeing others participate on the world stage really matters. And if they have that interest, that personality, that quest, seeing others do it is an encouragement. And so I applaud Circle for, starting at the beginning and just really going with it. There are a lot of pagans who attend the Parliament.
Thank you very much. I just want to mention for our listening audience on this podcast, we're also preparing a YouTube version of this program as well that will be available through the Circle Sanctuary YouTube channel. So at this time, I'm going to put everyone on gallery view. And I'm going to ask the group, what does it mean to you personally? Nicholas shared a little bit of that. What does it mean to you personally to participate in Parliament of the World's Religions? Dennis, I'd love to ask you.
Well, for me, I can think of two main things worth mentioning at this point. Number one, it's the exposure to the wide diversity of folks and religious traditions from all over the world and learning more about them and just being with them. Secondly, when you bring a whole bunch of religious people like that together, there's this amazing vibe of peace, love, harmony, that sort of thing. And you look around and everybody's got big smiles on their faces. So most of the time. So it's really cool to tune into that kind of energy.
Thank you. Judith.
I can echo some of what Dennis said, and it was really an honor to be there representing Circle Sanctuary, as well as paganism in the midst of such a vast gathering of groups for the purpose of interfaith. And for me, one of the best things was the conversations I had all week long with different people from all sorts of different walks of religious walks of life from all over the country. I met some really interesting people and had some very interesting conversations, some of which surprised me, like meeting a Christian minister who had never met a pagan before. So that led to some interesting discussions all week long as well. Check.
Thank you, Judith. Dia, how about you? Dia, we're having a hard time hearing you, so I'm gonna punt over to Kern, and we'll come back to you.
Yeah, I find it to be attending Parliament. I find it to be a really transformative experience for myself. Just finding so many people that are spiritual or religious that actually care about the planet, about justice, about things that are important. I mean, if you listen to radio or TV, you find that so many religious expressions just focus on saving souls or something like that. But to go to Parliament and to discover all these people that not only are good folks, but they really care about the world and about people, about justice and the environment. So that is just transformative for me to encounter folks like that.
Refreshing, a call to conscience. Dia, are you back with us?
Am I back with you?
There you go. Yeah.
There we go. I originally wanted to attend because as a new person in Circle, I saw an opportunity to connect with Circle people. And the byproduct of that was that I got to, as Dennis so eloquently put, get into this vibe with all of these people where differences didn't matter as much, and it was more about how can we be loving and kind and helpful, and that to me is what it came to be important for me. Chad.
Thank you. Thank you. Laura, how about you?
Well, I echo everybody. I love the hippie vibe that Dennis talked about, everybody with a smile, and the sense of collaboration for saving the planet, saving humans. And obviously, in this particular one, being a Chicagoan, it was a no-brainer. I had to be there, and it was fantastic that I get to do everything that I did, and also being part of all the communities, all the different intersectionalities that I lived through, and see women's rights, indigenous rights, pagan rights, and people just being people and loving each other. And it was a week of immense love and compassion, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Laura. How about you, Amy?
Oh, I've always wanted to or I shouldn't say always, but I've heard about it for a long time from other Circle people. And it just so happened that it was in Chicago and the stars lined up and I was able to attend. And oh, I'm so glad that I did. And I will be back as many times as possible. It was so amazing to see the huge amount of pagan people who were there representing, and that was amazing. And the women's rights groups, and the plenary session where there was like a football stadium full of people from all different religious stripes talking and inspiring. And my gosh, Jesse Jackson showed up on stage. So to answer the question of why was it important for us to be there, it was so important for us to be there. So to reconnect with people, there's so much division in the country right now, that seeing these people who are willing to come together was just heartwarming, heart mending for me.
Powerful. Thank you. Nicholas, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, two things. One, in 1993, when I was on the ground at the Parliament, one of the big things was the opportunity for behind the scenes interactions and encounters. I was able to spend time with Indigenous peoples in different ways, and that was really profound. And number two, whether virtual or on the ground at the Parliament, the passion that people are expressing themselves through is really important. You could be in a room of 1,000 people and you got all this passion going on, and that's one kind of vibe. But someone else up front really pounding their fist regarding, in this case, climate change or women's dignity. You take that home with you. You take that home with you.
Yeah. Selena, what did it mean to you personally? This particular theme. Yeah.
At a personal level, it was enriching, being able to have one-on-one connections with people I've been with at past parliaments. There is a parliament community now over the past 30 years. So it was educational. I learned things, inspirational. I get ideas, and motivational. It definitely is a way to find good follow-up to the Parliament to make a difference in the world. I'm so thankful on a personal level as well as an organizational level that Circle Sanctuary has had a delegation ever since the centennial rebirth. And I have seen paganism be increasingly understood, its diversity, and its own human rights issues, as well as becoming more integrated and welcomed and accepted within the larger interfaith community that's not only the Parliament, but interfaith around the world.
I've only been able to participate virtually a few years ago, and the pagans were in the house for sure. So that was exciting to feel then. I understand what we had 27 delegates in all from Circle Sanctuary this year who went. So a shout out to those who are not able to be with us on this program, but thank you to all of our delegates who went. I'm interested now in asking a few of you, what was important to you about the particular theme this year, which really got some promo ahead of the event, a call to conscience, a call to action. That was powerful. So Laura, why don't you start? Tell us what was important about that for you.
So a call to consciousness, defending freedom and human rights, right? And I have to write it down so I don't forget. Thank you, Selena. She helped me add one yesterday that I have forgotten. I am a fat, indigenous, immigrant, disabled, vegan, queer, Mexican, pagan, priestess, witch, woman. And maybe I have missed some. Those are all the intersections that I inhabit. And when you go to this event that is talking about freedom and human rights, and then I get the call to be part of the Fighting for Freedom New Moon ritual that was hosted by pagans in Chicago. And I say in Chicago because, yes, it was orchestrated by the magnificent mind of Twyla York and Matt Williams, who are, Twyla was the local Pagan Pride Chicago coordinator for 10 years, and Matt is now the current coordinator of Chicagoland Pagan Pride. But we have a host of people that came from as far as the Philippines and South Africa, whom are pagan clergy. We have people from the Aquarian Tabernacle Church, the members of the Nativist Correllian tradition, and members of the Troth, and a lot of people. The diversity on paganism was really remarkable, because as a priestess of the goddess, I'm, really deeply related to the goddess traditions, but I never seen all of the other. You hear the heathens, you hear all of the other traditions that are pagan, and then to see them in action. This ritual was a call for freedom of religion, of sexual orientation, of diversity, of existing. And I was honored to call on the land and the ancestors of the land, and also the spirit of progress, the spirit of Chicago. And I call on the spirit of progress because it was a wink, and I get to say it here, because I couldn't say it on the ritual, a wink to the 1893 Columbian Exposition, where the Parliament of Religions was first born. So I was so excited when I was talking to Selena before the ritual, like, I'm going to call the spirit of progress. And it was in a personal, very personal note, a love letter to Chicago, this land, this city that has given me. And now I'm getting emotional, so check. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Dia, how about you?
When I started contemplating coming to the Parliament, one of the things that became really important to me was I got to thinking about the fact that I'm disabled, and one of the things that Circle has taught me is about being counted and being present to be counted, and how important that is. And so for me personally, I felt like this theme called me to action. It said, stand up, be counted. And so it brought me to really discuss and research, and because I presented something on disability, so I ended up doing a lot of research around it. And I was really excited about that. And then to meet other people who came to the disability workshop and have them talk about, we were so excited that disability was on the program. So that was why it was important to me.
Oh, Fern, how about you?
Oh, I really enjoyed the theme this year, which focused on human rights and the call to action, call to conscience. I remember one speaker in particular talked about the rise of authoritarians in the world, and just how authoritarians tend to focus on issues that divide people, and that those, by doing that, they ignore issues like the environment, and climate change, um, and each of the speakers in their own way referred back to it's a human right to live in a clean and safe world, in a clean environment, and the need to take action on climate change. No matter what they were talking about, they kept referring back to that. So it's really, the environment is really an integral part of Parliament now as a theme.
Mm-hmm. Global issue. Thank you. Yeah. How about you, Nicholas? This theme.
For me, when I saw the words human rights on the front page of the Parliament, that really exploded for me. In the last few years, I have taken up human rights, universal human rights, as you know, my 70-year-old, what am I going to do for the rest of my life focus. And part of my life is about serendipity. When something is put on the table that really underscores what I'm doing, what I'm looking for, what I'm looking at, you take it, you go for it. This year is the 75th anniversary of the United Nations Declaration of Universal Human Rights. And I assume the people at the Parliament knew this before they came up with the name, but I don't know. It was real good for me. So the relevance, it's just so relevant to my life. I had to participate in some way.
It's really inspiring to hear you all talk about that, and I'm very much appreciating that. UN Secretary Gutierrez was talking about the rise of authoritarianism and climate change being the two most dangerous phenomenon happening for humankind on the planet today. And, this whole effort to call out people of faith leaders, people of conscience, to stand against that and exercise moral authority, basically. I'm going to go back to gallery view for everybody to give us a chance to see you all as I ask the question, what were some of the things you actually got to do there? And again, if you don't mind, I'll call on people around the screen. Laura, I'm going to start with you this time.
I was not ready. Okay, I'm ready.
Sorry.
One of the things that I got to do, well, the first one that it was a surprise for me and everybody else was to lead the procession of Parliament. I literally knew I was leading the procession a minute before we started leading the procession. And that was the biggest gift that the universe has ever given me, Goddess. As a Chicagoan, as an immigrant, as an Indigenous woman, as a pagan, as all the things that I am, it was fantastic. So I got to do that. I also got to do a blessing on the main stage at the opening ceremony on Nahuatl, Spanish, and English. And that was the time of my life. But back more into my regular run-of-the-mill events that I do on the main stage. Tarot as a healing tool was presented at the Pagan Faith Room. Panel Global Voices Women Podcasting. I was part of the hospitality gathering, and I was very honored to also be part of the many sponsors that were related to that. I was part of the Fighting for Freedom New Moon Ritual that I mentioned earlier, where many languages were spoken, by the way, Tagalog, Dutch, and English, and Nahuatl, and Spanish. Then we did the panel of Pagan Voices of Chicago, the Festivals of the Dead, Dia de Muertos and Samhain, which was fantastic. And we did the ceremony for Planet Earth, which was also part of the circle activities. And my last collaboration was Indigenous and Pagan Practices, Differences and Similarities, which was part of the 20 different events that happened on the Pagan Faith Room.
Wow. Amy, I'm punting to you. What did you get to do?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so my favorite things that I did, well, I did lots of things. I got to participate in the Langar lunches, which are, I guess it was a local Chicagoan six, and also people from around that came together and fed everyone for free. And they were the most gracious people, and it was so nice to meet them and introduce them to pagans. I got to participate in some Sufi circle dances, which I took some of those home to my own groups, my own circles. I got to go to Matthew Fox's Cosmic Mass, which was just amazing, very moving. Let's see. Oh, I got to participate in a croning ritual, so I'm now officially a crone, which is something that I've been contemplating for a while. So lots of stuff. Oh my goodness. Participating in conversations with people, even within the pagan community, that I didn't really understand. I got to talk to some heathens about some things that I'd been worried about with, their some of the people with the white supremacy that has gotten into the heathen community, and how do we see that, and what do they stand, it's just all the conversations and the getting to understand each other. Anyway, I'll check, because there's lots more people that have experiences.
More just wonderfully diverse stuff. Kern, what did you get to do?
Oh, wow. Well, a few of the things I got to do, I participated in a panel on rituals and grieving that focused on Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, and Samhain, with Laura Gonzalez and Selena Fox. And as a chaplain, I got to talk about the grief aspects and how rituals help to express grief and heal our grief. So that was pretty cool. And then on the last day, Selena led a ritual for pagans out on the on the terrace where overlooking the big Lake Michigan there. And I got to play and sing, play my guitar and sing a little bit. Got to play Paul Simon, Citizen of the Planet, which seemed to fit real well with the theme of the week and with the rituals. So I got to go to exhibit booths and talk to people of all different faiths. And I was also amazed that a lot of the exhibit booths had to do with the environment. Chicago had a lot of booths there focusing on environment and urbanization and so forth. But they were, booths of folks that were doing worldwide projects with the rainforest and so many. So I was really impressed with that too. So those are some things I got to do.
Oh, wonderful. Dia, what are some of the things you got to do?
Well, outside of presenting faith, dogs, and disability, I have a service animal. So I did a workshop based on that. I also presented geomancy, which, if you're unaware, geomancy is one of the few interfaith divinatory tools. It's used by Muslims, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, you name it. They have a type of it that they utilize. And so I was really excited to do that. But the Langar was great. I was part of the women's water ritual, which turned into this massively wonderful thing that I really, I kind of went with I can be a skeptic. And so I kind of went with, and then every time I turned around, I was doing something where I was like, wow, okay, this is cool. But the water ritual is really, really healing and empowering. And then just spending time at the circle booth and talking to people who came up. And that was a lot of fun as well.
Selena, what did you get to do?
As with past parliaments, I wore a variety of hats. I did some media work. I did some live streaming, social media, pop-up live streams, and was interviewed by various media people. Circle Sanctuary had a booth, and I'm so thankful that we were present in the exhibit area, really next to where the main plenaries were being held. And I spent some time at the booth right before the Parliament began. The Sunday, the day before, there was the Parade of Faiths. And to be with people from so many different parts of the world and faith traditions in Chicago on public streets was really a highlight. There's an area within the Parliament this year called the Women's Village, and I spent some time there and also got to visit the Green Tent, which Green Faith and other environmentalists had created. The Pagan Faith Room helped sponsor that. The reception was at the Freedom Ritual. It was really fabulous. And in terms of program contributions, I was part of 3 panels, some of which have been mentioned already. Global Voices, Women Podcasting. So glad to be with Laura and Deborah as we talked about our experiences with Circle Sanctuary Network podcasts and the Festivals of the Dead. Kern, Laura, and I had a packed room as we talked about the importance of honoring the dead across cultures and faith traditions, similarities and differences. I was also part of Revisited, Recycled, and Revamped: How Pagans Use Myths for New Stories That Matter. And there were a variety of us on this panel. Reverend Brian Weiss, who's heathen and interfaith, convened us all. Jasmine, who is part of the Circle Sanctuary delegation, and I were part of this panel, along with Ethan Stark and Robert Loesch Schreier, who are also heathens. And that was fabulous. And I got to facilitate 4 rituals. There was Weaving the Rhythms of Nature Through Ourselves. My subtitle for this, Pagan Chants and Dances of Universal Peace. And this was Wednesday morning. And Patricia Keys from Wisconsin, who's UU and involved with Dances for Universal Peace, and I co-facilitated this to a packed room at 8 in the morning. It was wonderful. Later on Wednesday, from 1 until 2, I was doing Bright Bridget Blessings meditation, also full of people from many different faith traditions. And I not only guided some Bridget chanting and some meditations, but facilitated connections with healing for ourselves and the planet. And I did the ceremony for Planet Earth. And I've done versions of that at past parliaments, and this was by far one of the more powerful ones, overlooking Lake Michigan. And then Friday, late morning, I was back at the Women's Village doing the Red Tent Croning ceremony. I had spoken about the crone at past parliaments, but this was the first time I had been invited to facilitate this international, multilingual, interreligious ceremony celebrating women and their aging processes. Some other things were just being present, not only at the plenaries, but being able to be out along the lake and to appreciate nature's beauty in the center of Chicago. So a lot was happening, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity not only to present, but to learn and take part in a variety of events. The Cosmic Mass, that Matthew Fox did had a spiral dance, pagan chanting, as well as Christian communion. And it was really fabulous having co-officiated with him decades ago when he was in Madison to see how that particular interreligious ceremony evolved and how the call for us coming together to work on behalf of the planet in rituals and in action was very much part of that.
Woo-hoo. Just getting a little sense of what it must have been like to be in the midst of the program throughout the week by listening to all of you. Nicholas, what are some things you got to do?
Well, as a virtual ticket holder, I got to see what was happening on the main stage. I got to sleep. I didn't run around attending a lot of events, so I could focus really heavily on the stuff I did see. I could see it twice in the same day, which was pretty amazing. And I got to interact with other virtual ticket holders as we navigated. 847 events were available, and we had to find the ones that we could get into. It was a very nice experience to be able to focus intently on that set of speakers that were on the main stage.
Thank you. You remind me there was a virtual option as well. Yeah. Judith, you were live. What did you get to do?
Well, Laura mentioned that she led the opening ceremony on Monday morning, and I was so proud to see her do that. It was wonderful. But I got the opportunity to lead the pagan contingent in the parade on Sunday. And we had 5 or 6 different pagan organizations all marching together in the midst of this amazing parade with the Sikhs just going crazy with all of their fabulous costuming and the horses and buggies and carriages and floats. It was such an honor to be part of that parade. It was really, really exciting. And then I went to a couple of pagan panels, one on myths and one on the Chicagoland pagans, and they were both really fabulous. But I didn't narrow my focus to pagans only. I also went to a Mayan ritual, which was really cool, learning about the cosmological view of the Mayans. And I went to a Gnostic mass. And it was really interesting in that it was looked exactly like the high Catholic mass, but man, so much of it was pagan. It was great. And then I was with a number of you all for the Cosmic Mass, which was such a moving experience in a huge hall, hundreds of people doing the spiral dance, and then the lighted candles or the I forget what they're called, in the decoration at the end, and then the communion. That was fabulous. And it was really also honored to be at the Croning ritual at the Red Tent. I facilitate the Croning ritual at Pagan Spirit Gathering every year, but we normally only have maybe 8-10 women at the most. To be able to crone so many people from all over the world all at once was just so joyful. So welcome, you new crones. And it was just a great time to be there. Great to see you all.
Wonderful. Thank you. Dennis, what did you get to do?
Well, I did many of the same things that have already been mentioned, and it was great hearing about them because they brought back very positive memories for me. I did attend a number of climate change sessions, and I'll talk more about that in an upcoming question. I think the highlight day for me at the Parliament was Wednesday. It was the middle of the week. We had a couple days to settle into the experience. And I chose to participate in more experiential activities that day. So my morning began at 8 o'clock with an hour-long bhakti yoga spiritual experience, which was led by the Krishna consciousness folks from the Chicago area, and involved an hour of chanting, devotional chanting to Krishna and Rama. It was first done spoken, then with music, and then with movement. And it was truly a kind of mind-blowing spiritual experience like I've not experienced before. It's beyond words to describe it, and it was just wonderful. Then in late afternoon, I was able to attend an hour-long yoga nidra meditation, which was very relaxing and grounding and that sort of thing. And then my Wednesday concluded with the Cosmic Mass led by Matthew Phlox, and that was truly an ecstatic kind of experience as well. So that was my Wednesday, and it was truly a remarkable experiential day.
It warms my heart to hear Matthew Lifted, because when I was in seminary in Berkeley, like eons ago, I went to his cosmic masses, and they really are mind blowing. The interreligious power of what he did. So I can't help but notice a lot of you lift that up. I just want to mention here, thank you all of you for sharing some specific things you did. To our audience, if you want to see more about this year, you can go to parliamentofreligions.org and look for Chicago 2023. And it says here, again, that was parliamentofreligions.org, Chicago 2023, 7,000 plus attendees this year, 95 plus countries attended, 210 plus traditions represented. I just want to share a couple quotes. First one is from Dr. Miriam Renaud, who is principal investigator and director of the Global Ethic Project, who said, "It was really impressive this year to see how 30 years on, the Parliament's 1993 document toward a global ethic generated a lot of buzz during this year's convening, whether in casual conversations or on social media. A lot of people talked about how, although most of us don't share the same beliefs, we agree on the basic values and principles expressed in that document. And they appreciated how this clear statement can serve as a conversation starter and help people connect, whether they come from different religions or the same religion or not religious at all." Also said, during those 5 days, we lived a shared joy, reflected by all of you, for what the world can be when people of faith committed to justice, peace, and sustainability come together, made possible by our amazing sponsors, partners, and participants. And then finally, but it was also a week of recognition of the threats facing our communities and the world. The call to conscience of the 2023 Parliament is not just a public service announcement. It's a flashing emergency light affirming to the world that faith and spiritual communities are vital partners and first responders in this fight for justice, freedom, for a healthy environment, for human rights, and for democracy. And as we talk about a lot on Blue Marble, without democracy or the power of the people, we can't help each other, we can't help the planet. So the intersectionality is front and center. I'm going to pivot now to a question and go, Dennis, to you, please, first. Speaking of which, what were some of the Earth climate-related programs that occurred during this year's Parliament?
So the Parliament, for several parliaments now, and perhaps as far back as its beginning, have really focused, or its reemergence in 1993, have really focused on climate change. And this year, there was a 2-hour climate assembly with a number of speakers on Monday that started the event. And then on Friday, there was another climate action assembly, 2 hour schedule. They tended to take up to 3 hours with a wide range of speakers. And then in the middle, during the week, there was more than 80 to 90 individual presentations related to the environment. So a very diverse range of programming. I took pretty careful notes during the opening and closing events, and then later did an analysis of those notes to identify what, for me, were several main themes that were addressed throughout the week in these workshops. The first theme, Char has already referenced, was the intersectionality of climate change with other issues, particularly human rights. A major subtitle of the Parliament this year was Defending Freedom and Human Rights. Well, with climate change, all of our freedom and human rights are potentially at stake here. And in this regard, I particularly came away with a much greater sensitivity for the impact of climate change on Indigenous people and other folks around the world who live in areas that are already dramatically impacted, more so than some other areas. The second theme was a need for hope and optimism, because the issue of climate change can feel overwhelming and lead to a sense of hopelessness. So that was another important theme that was raised. Another theme that emerged was the importance of religious leaders and of religions to lead the way in this fight again to mitigate climate change, because religions are a source of main values and priorities for folks. Another point that came through loud and clear was the need to empower young people. And they had some very inspirational young speakers who are co-chairing youth climate groups talking about the fears that they've experienced and the need for us to act now to deal with this issue. And the final major theme that I identified were the calls for action and the examples of action. And many of the workshops throughout the week highlighted important work that's already been done, as well as outlined future work that needs to be done. So those were some of the main themes that resonated with me in those events. And I'll let some other folks address some of those specifics, perhaps.
Well, that's a lot. Thank you, Dennis. Judith, what were some of the programs you saw?
Well, along with all of those wonderful things that Dennis just mentioned, I'll talk about the ceremonies for Earth that I was a part of. On Friday morning, Selena led the ceremony for Planet Earth right there on the East Terrace overlooking Lake Michigan. And it was just such a powerful, wonderful call to action for our Earth. And then at that, on Wednesday, preceding that, also regarding water, at the Women's Center, we started off first thing in the morning with women's water ceremony. And it was a just really touching ceremony because women from all over the world brought water, and they each added their water to the same vase. And we realized how important water is to our bodies, to our environment, to our health. It runs through, literally runs through everything. And it's so important to us. So we really honored that water. And then all of us walked all the way up to the main football room where they had 6,000 chairs set up to kick off the plenary for that day. And we just marched around and shouted and screamed. It was just such a reaffirming presence of the flow of women's energy. And then that evening, we again gathered on the East Terrace, actually right down by the lake, and had a number of presenters talking about water, the importance of it. And then we took the water that had been gathered in the morning and talked about through the plenary all day long, and we added it back to the water of our Mother Earth, to Lake Michigan. And it was just very moving. So check.
Moving indeed. Selena, what were some of the climate-related programs you participated in?
I took part in a presentation that had Mayan facilitation, and Morgana, who's part of our Circle Sanctuary Green Faith Circle, as well as part of Pagan Federation International, has done a lot of work with the people who are doing the program. So I had a chance to not only connect with her, but the people who were bringing that program. There was an altar, there was ceremony, and there was also a sharing about the importance of tapping in to the ancient ones, working with land in a sacred way, for the betterment of the planet. There were so many things happening at the Parliament itself. I was not able to attend in real time all of the climate events. And the Interfaith Rainforest Initiative, I was able to take part in virtually a few days ago. I had some contact with people who were part of the Interfaith Rainforest Initiative, and it really is focusing primarily on the Amazon and how important it is for us to be aware of what is going on with the Amazon and how to support the health of the Amazon, not only the creatures and the plants and the ecosystems, but the humans, the indigenous people who are part of the Amazon. And there were people involved with other rainforest initiatives that were also mentioned as part of that program. I'm thankful that we were able to do a planetary healing ceremony as a community, and having people from Circle Sanctuary, from different parts of the country in different ways of being, all contributing music, meditation, reflections, and having people of many faiths and philosophies join us out by Lake Michigan was a wonderful way to be able to send some healing out to planet Earth. I am so thankful there were multiple grand gatherings on the main stage talking about the climate, and that the climate was very much intersectional and got mentioned in pretty much every event that I took part in. In fact, the mayor of Chicago, in his remarks in the opening plenary, the first type of justice that he called for in his talk was climate justice. So the climate was very much represented. I also want to just take a few moments and go back to 1993. There was Gerald O'Barney who did a presentation at that Parliament. He was the head of the Millennium Institute, and I have found that his report that was presented at the Parliament back in 1993, which for many people was a pre-internet time, is now available online. And he talked about the need then for us to take climate action. I am so thankful for that initial calling for action and for the actions that have happened since. I really see this year the information, the education, all of that was good, but there is a real focus on motivation for collaboration to get this done now. And that gave me hope to see so many people in so many ways, not only talking, but even in the sacred music concert that was Thursday night. And that's a tradition of all the parliaments to have music from different people, from different faith traditions. Climate also, and the need to care for our planet, not just with the humans, but and the creatures, but the planet as a whole was really powerful.
Thank you. It warms my heart to hear all of you so far. And Kern, I'll get to you in a minute. Mentioning climate justice, which we talk about on Blue Marble absolutely every episode, and lifting up frontline communities who are literally on the battlefield with many of these large extractive industries that are polluting, and who also the indigenous communities who carry the great earth wisdom that all of us need to do a better job of learning from. So, Kern, what climate earth related programs did you participate in?
Well, I wanted just to bring up one that was really meaningful to me. On Tuesday, there was a powerful climate repentance ceremony. And there were leaders of all faiths, but they also included a lot of indigenous folks, Native Americans, and so forth. I think the main message that I heard there was we don't need to only repent to the divine God or goddess, but also to the land and to the earth, and people from, like I said, all different faiths emphasized this and how important it was. And of course, repentance means simply a change of mind, from the Greek, and metanoia, and really it just it talked about how important it was to change what our thinking on all these things, and be definitely to be more aware, self-aware of what we're doing and how we can contribute to solving climate change problems, individually and as groups as we get together. So that moment of humility and repentance toward climate change, it was pretty powerful to me.
Indeed. Wow, that was a lot. I'm going to go back to gallery view, everybody, because you've already sort of alluded to it, but this is your chance to add if there's any particularly favorite moment that you had. And Amy, I'm going to start with you.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I think, okay, so there were a couple of, you're talking about takeaways?
No, I'm talking about your absolute most favorite moment. And if you need a moment to think, I can jump to Nicholas first.
I think, can I say two? Like, one is I was in a ritual. I don't remember which day it was because it runs together, but it was led by heathens, and it was a ritual for the earth. And here we were out on this terrace at the McCormick Center with the interstate running under us and Lake Michigan behind us and this little cardboard tree with paper leaves on it. But everyone in the circle took time to mention the thing that they love the most about the earth, our mother, and what we would miss the most. And it was so moving. And being in that environment, it was really very potent. The other thing was just being in this situation where there were founders of the faith all over, and you could just hang out with them. We spent some time hanging out with Maka Nightmare, who was one of the founders of Reclaiming. Of course, being here with Miss Selena Fox, and Oberon Zell was wandering around in his wizard robes. It was just amazing to see people humbly intermixing, and that has to be probably my favorite part of it, both of those events.
Thank you. Thank you. Nicholas, I know you were viewing in. Do you have a favorite moment?
I do. Another thing that I follow for a very long time is Australian Aboriginal peoples. And it was really nice to see Major Moogie Subner on the main stage, I think 3, maybe 4 times. And these are long threads, the ancestry there goes back 50, 60,000 years. In the most recent 100 years, strife and progress. And so it was really nice to see him on stage singing and speaking to his own work in Australia, in both ancient and modern presentation. There he is on camera, on internet, on the world stage. So I was really happy that he was there on the main stage while I was watching.
Cool. Dennis, do you have a favorite moment?
Boy, that is a hard one to arrive at. But I think one of the favorite moments was at the end of the parade on Sunday. They had people turn off onto a side street. And as the parade was ending, groups kind of stopped wherever they were at and began doing whatever they do as a group. And it was that one experience where, as I was mingling amongst the people, where you could kind of look around and start to see the diversity of the different groups and what they were all about in that one place. And as I think back to past parliaments, it's been those moments, and each one had a different layout where you got that kind of panoramic view of the range of folks that were at Parliament. And so this was the closest that I experienced that particular element. So that's why I've chosen that right now.
Fun. Yeah. What's your favorite moment?
So my favorite moment came in the women's water ritual. I was sitting on a couch, and in front of me, two women came and sat. One was clearly indigenous, and I would learn later from Costa Rica. The woman next to her was from Portugal, and there was a language barrier between them. One of them spoke Spanish, the woman from Costa Rica. The woman from Portugal did not. She spoke English, and so they were trying to help each other, and these girls came in with yarmulkes on, and they sit down, and one leans in and is hearing what's happening, and then I watch them whisper down the line and then begin pull the girl furthest away over, and then they introduce her. She speaks fluent Spanish, and is able to translate for the woman from Costa Rica. So the next thing the poor girl knows, she's standing up in front of all the women and is relaying this message of harmony and love for the mother. And as I'm watching all of this happen, and we're encouraging the young lady to speak up and take space as she gives this message for the woman from Costa Rica, I thought, oh, this is Parliament. Like that, what just happened, that was Parliament.
There it is. Boom. Yeah. Kern, what's your bestie favorite?
Oh, so hard to choose. I was going to say seeing Jane Goodall on the stage. She's always been a great heroine of mine. And but I'm going to go ahead and say hearing the Chicago Ukrainian Children's Choir sing, and that was pretty cool to be in person and just to say Ukrainia Salva and see the faces smiling. It just, I can't say it just really was emotional for me, and I just that, and I wouldn't have had that experience unless I went to Parliament.
Judith.
Well, on Wednesday, I went to a workshop called Call to Consciousness Through Luminality Towards a Global Ethic panel. And besides the panel being great, that's where I met this Christian minister. And so we got talking, and then we ran into each other again later in that afternoon at another workshop. And we got to be talking more. Well, my favorite moment was when he shows up the next morning at our pagan panel, the Chicagoland pagan panel. And I was actually talking to the panel about the fact that I'd met this guy, and we were able to do some great exchanges. And then he stands up behind me. I didn't realize he was also in the workshop, and he was marvelous. He said that he had really learned a lot about our path, and he was just really supportive and very cool. So that was a really cool moment.
Mm-hmm. Laura, what was your favorite?
You must forgive me, but I have two. A very personal was a favorite to chant the chant for Waitanatsin on the opening, and then to have people on Friday morning at the ceremony for planet Earth to chant it back with me. I don't know if folks were looking at videos or if they just learn it because it's so easy to chant or what. But it's a chant. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm relaying this story. It's a chant to our great mother. And it's the first chant that I learned on Nawa. And to have people chant it back with me at the ceremony, And the same thing happened at the Fighting for Freedom, where I opened with a chant and I needed to close. And I told people, you can leave, it's okay. I'm just going to close by myself. And I closed my eyes and I'm chanting. And next thing you know, they are responding to the chant. And I didn't open my eyes because I just wanted to hear them. So the unity and the appreciation for indigenous practices as an indigenous woman that has been ostracized for that part of my being, I am now feeling more and more comfortable on my indigenuity, and it's thanks to Parliament. My second favorite moment, I'm so sorry, Charlotte, but it's one word: women, women. The Women's Village, I didn't discover the Women's Village until Wednesday. And after Wednesday, I never left. It was amazing, all the programming, I couldn't attend to too many panels again because I had 9 commitments. But to be connected and to meet these icons like Dr. Jean Shinoda Bolen, like Phyllis Scrudd, like Maka, like, you know, Byron, and all of these women that are the trailblazers of the women's movement, and to see women at the Women's Village, Muslim women, Hindu women, Sikh women, Jewish women, it doesn't matter where, Catholic women, Christian women, at the Women's Village, talking about the divine feminine. It just filled my heart and reinvigorated my commitment. I am a priestess of the goddess, and there's nothing else I want it to be. Check.
Boom. There it is. Selena, what was your favorite?
I think it's more like a process, what I call the Parliament synchronicity and serendipity. I was told about a woman from Ireland into Bridget and Celtic ways that I needed to connect with. And within an hour, I find myself about ready to do an interview for one of the press there. And this woman comes up to me, and it's her. Someone who I served in a nonprofit with out of Washington, D.C., showed up at my Bridget ritual, and a Christian minister, and we kept connecting with each other. People who I hadn't met before, we happened to sit next to each other and start conversations. What I call the magic of Parliament, the connection and being part of that community where magic happens.
Thank you all. I mean, my heart is just full listening to this. It's all like powerful beyond belief. Talk about really making good energy and good magic for each other, for the world, for the planet. Thank you so much again for being there and being a part of that. Now, this is our very last question that I have for each of you. It's I'm gonna treat it as your closing remarks. And again, if you'll permit me, I'll call on you around it. But my last question, for those of us who are listening or watching who weren't there, what was your really big takeaway this year, and what would you want to say to people who weren't there about this moment on the planet? Nicholas, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. For me, one of my missions in attending was to look for the next generations, to look for the young people. And it was really good to see so many young people on stage. And so my takeaway and my advice is, support the young people, uplift the young people, get them on stage, because it is their future, their kids, grandkids. So we need to, as the older generation, make sure the younger generation is supported and uplifted. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you. Powerful. Judith.
Well, my takeaway is that for the most part, I believe most people are good and want the best for our planet, for other people, for the climate. And the best we can do is just what we can individually do. And we just need to keep doing it. And we need to shine our light as best as we possibly can, as Marianne Williams said, because the more we shine our light, the more we allow others to shine theirs.
Thank you. Dennis.
So for me, I want to quote or paraphrase some comments by Reverend Dr. Gerard Durley, who was a student leader in the civil rights movement of the 1960s and is pastor emeritus of Providence Missionary Baptist Church. And he is clearly an inspirational African-American preacher. And he says to the effect, I was at a mountaintop place and now I need to talk to you about climate change. All right. This is a movement. Keep marching and standing up. We must accept finite disappointment and accept infinite hope. It is our time, our turn to make a difference. Expect enemies and distractions. Don't let this stop now. Blow your trumpet. Blow your trumpet. In other words, we must act now to minimize the potential climate change effects that are in the works.
Thank you. Thank you. Dia.
When I was a Christian, I was weird for a Christian. And then I became a pagan and I was weird for a pagan. And then I went to Parliament and I figured out I'm of the WYRD. I am weird. And all the people who are weird were at Parliament and they were making differences and they were making changes and they were having personal interactions that were making change. So I came away understanding that I am weird. And for the first time in my life, that is not a bad thing. It is a good thing and it is a needed thing. And I also came away with an idea that we have to be counted. We all have to stand up and say who we are and advocate for who we are, that it's important not for us. It's important for that other person who can't do it for themselves. Check.
Thank you. Kern.
I think the biggest impression I got was hope for the eco-spirituality movement, because it was, the eco-spirituality was just woven into everything at Parliament. And that was very inspiring for me. Gave me hope that when people work together and on a problem and we can make a lot of change. We can force our governments to act, and we the people can speak up. Yeah, it was mostly hope that I took away from that.
Thank you. Thank you. Makes me feel hopeful hearing you all, for sure. Amy, what's your takeaway?
So my takeaway is, what I brought back. There's a quote that came up that spoke deeply to me, and it is, the master will never give us the tools to tear down his house. That we have to be working in a different space, in a different realm with different tools. We have written letters to Congress, we have voted, we have done all of these things, and now it's time to look to the world between. The spaces in between, which is where spirituality is. And we have to do the work as witches in that space, as witches, as spiritual people, at prayer, these kinds of things. So solution, and bringing that back to my circles and working with some of the same energies that we started at PSG with the women's ritual, but bringing that into this space of, yes, actually, this is the tool that we need to be using to promote change. And hope, again, is that thing, right? Because now we know that the tools are not in this physical space.
Thank you. That's the whole thrust of Blue Marble, is that our spirituality and our activism are interconnected. They're inextricable. Thank you. Yes. Okay, Laura, your takeaway, what you would say to people who weren't there.
Go if you can, get there if you can, and next time I hope I can be there. The most inspirational situation for me is it brought me back to my basics. It brought me back to the goddess. It brought me back to action. And I will always, and you're very familiar with this, Charlotte, the way we treat women is the way we treat the earth. And we have to make that connection that we're treating the earth, the way we're treating her, because she is being seen as a woman. So we have to start being conscious about women's rights and women's dignity and women's freedom and equality. And to have the women's village and to have all these wonderful women working for the earth, for the planet, and for women's rights. So it brought me back to my basics, and back to online women's circles, and back to working with the goddess and being loud and proud to be a priestess of the goddess. And whatever are the tools, like Amy just said, whatever are the tools that you're going to use, go, quoting Selena, powerful and inspirational. That's what it was, you know. And to see all these women, like I said earlier, you know, of many different faiths. I used to think about women's religion and tradition as one specific part of paganism. It's not. And Parliament opened my eyes to that women are women, and we need to defend ourselves, and we need to stand up, take space. I mean, listen to all the wonderful women here and men who are, or knights, you know, advocating for the earth and for children, etc. So we have to look back into how we treat the earth, because we treat her like a woman. So we need to start treating women right. And that is my inspiration, and that's what I take out. And I'm going to be doing women's circles, and I'm going to stop planning and thinking and strategizing. It's happening, and it's going to continue happening. Check.
All right. And Selena, I ask you last because you're part of our generational legacy of both spiritual leadership and activism for human rights, for the earth, and all of this. I mean, Dennis, I acknowledge you there too, but you know, what is your takeaway, and what to you is what you would say to someone who wasn't there about this moment on our planet?
This was a powerful convergence of people of many beliefs in many places. And part of the way that the Parliament continues to be a positive force for inspiration, motivation, and transformation is to share our stories, our experiences with others who weren't there, to take part as part of our life journey in some interreligious endeavors, in particular endeavors that are directly affecting environmental justice and needs in local areas and the larger planet. In helping to birth Earth Day, along with many, many other people who responded to Senator Gaylord Nelson's call back in 1970. Think globally, act locally. And I really do think that each of us who is at the Parliament has the ability to share about our experiences amongst those we know, and to get the message out even further about hope and possibility, and the need to collaborate and to take action, to bring about more understanding, as well as opportunities to work together for a healthier planet. There is so much economic and environmental challenge in the news on a daily basis now. I really hope that the Parliament and its messaging, its connections can help bring balance about the good things that are happening and the wonderful connections that have been going on now for 30 years since the Parliament's rebirth, that we can work with the Parliament as a tool, as well as other endeavors to support this greater quest that we're all part of really being part of the solutions rather than the pollutions. So I see love, hope, and eco-action as important follow-ups to the Parliament.
Thank you so much. And that's also a reminder to our audience that Circle Sanctuary is a registered circle with green faith, an international interfaith, intergenerational movement calling upon faith leaders and people of faith everywhere to advocate for bold action on climate change and eco-justice, climate justice. So Circle Sanctuary continues this work year-round through our Green Faith Circle ministry that hosts monthly virtual meetings and YouTube programs. So that wraps up this installment of Blue Marble Podcast. I want to thank all of you so much for joining me today, our special guests, members of the Circle Sanctuary delegation to the 2023 Parliament of the World Religions. It's been so special to hear from all of you. And thank you so much to our audience for listening. If you value what you heard here today, please share this information with others. New Blue Marble podcasts air live on the third Friday of every month. This is a special episode, and it is available for listening anytime after its airing through our channel on Blog Talk Radio. You can go to www.blogtalkradio.com/CSNP. You can search Blue Marble with Rev Char Bear, and you will find this in the archive of these podcasts. We have so many wonderful, incredible podcasts on CSNP through the facebook.com/CSN podcasts or through the Circle Sanctuary website at www.circlesanctuary.org under the CSNP tab. So until next time, this is Char Bear signing off. Thank you for all the good you do. Stay true and blue, and hey, I hope to see you in the green space.